All right. Okay. Ready?
Do you want to have him on your left?
I'll turn around and we'll do the... Yeah, we'll get it. We're going to get up here in a second.
I just don't want to try and step over the cable, so you should go.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, I do.
Yeah.
Folks, all right. You know something? Let's get this party started. We're out in New York City. You know that. We've been talking about this for the last couple weeks. We're at the Intrepid Sierra and Space Museum. You know that as well because we've been here yesterday as well. And we are trying to do our first ever full tour of a submarine, using the wackiest setup you've ever seen. We have the little action camera that we usually use here, and it is connected today to 400 feet of cable. We are going to be dragging this cable throughout the submarine, which is the Submarine Growler behind us, and trying to go through all of the important compartments, all the bits and bobs and periscope rooms and torpedo rooms and nuclear missile control centers and stuff like that for the submarine. So bear with us today. Remember, you're part of our remote production crew, and if something goes wacky, if a battery dies or something, just tell me, because I'm going to be reading chat, and we will go ahead and try our first tour of the Growler submarine. Again, I'm going to start off by saying this. Massive thanks to the Intrepid Sierra and Space Museum. You know we've been coming out here for 5 years. We do Kids Week, we do Space and Science Festival, we do exhibitions with them, we stream astronaut talks, all the cool things that Intrepid lets us do. This is probably the wackiest thing Intrepid has let us do, and apparently we convinced somebody that this was an idea. I'm not going to say good idea, but let's see how it goes. Now, you know how it is. I'm not an expert on submarines. I'm not a tour guide. I just talk a lot, and I like to surround myself with people that are smarter than me. I'm doing that today. We've got our friend from the museum here, Mike Murtagh.
Hello, chat.
Who is today a senior educator, right?
I am.
We got that correct.
Yes, we did this time.
I think we got that correct.
Always a pleasure, Doss.
As we go through the submarine, Mike is our subject matter expert. Can we call you that too?
Sure.
All right, sure. He's just like, we'll go with it. And he
Close
is
enough.
going to be telling us about the history of the submarine. And it's an interesting submarine because we've got the normal submarine bits behind us right now, right? We've got the conning tower. What do they call it?
It depends on the air. This is a sail.
This is a sail.
World War
okay.
II, you call it a conning tower.
Okay, so this one was a sail because it
Yeah.
was after World War II. All right, so we have the sail behind us. There's like periscopes sticking out of the top. It's like a regular submarine, right? It's in the water. That's a feature of a submarine. But it also has this next to it. If you can see past our portable cell phone tower here, it has a Regulus I cruise missile. What is a Regulus I cruise missile?
Well, the Regulus I cruise missile, most important thing about it is this nuclear-tipped missile. See, the big thing about the Growler is this is one of the world's first 5 nuclear missile-carrying submarines.
No kidding.
The Regulus I is a cruise missile, so it's not designed to kind of go up and walk all the way and come back down again. It's a liquid-fueled, air-breathing engine. In some ways, it's almost like a remote-control plane designed to deliver a thermonuclear weapon, a hydrogen bomb, on target in the Soviet Union.
Is it like a jet engine on it? Or
Yeah, essentially, it's a jet engine in that thing. It had JATO rockets on the side. You can just see them there, the little gray thing sticking out. They get an extra boost, like the space shuttle gets an extra boost.
to get to like take off,
But
right?
it's cruising in a traditional sense like a jet would be. It's got an air intake up top there to be able to get to where it needs to go.
No kidding. So this was one of the first, I guess, one of the first types of nuclear cruise missiles.
Yeah, you could definitely say that. The whole goal here was to build a missile that was small enough to fit on a submarine. So we certainly had nuclear missiles capable of delivering nuclear weapons
Right.
at the
There
time.
was like ballistic missiles.
Yeah, exactly.
Almost.
They're
They'd go
ballistic
up and-
missiles, solid fueled, much larger. So in
Right.
terms of a small cruise missile that's portable like this, yes, this is where this idea begins.
No kidding. And so we decided that we were going to field a submarine. Is it the Growler? Is that the class of submarine, or what's the class of submarine?
It's a complicated question.
Okay.
The thing you have to keep in mind is that this is something completely new, right?
Right.
Every military submarine, going all the way back to the Turtle in the American Revolution or the Hunley of the Confederacy
Right,
in the Civil
right.
War, is designed to do one thing: sink surface ships.
Right.
Hang on near the surface, torpedo, dive.
Right.
This thing's all different. This thing's job is to hang out there somewhere in the Pacific Ocean, 300 feet down, ready to destroy Soviet targets if World War III breaks out.
Land
as a
targets,
deterrent. Land
right?
targets.
Yeah.
So when we think about all that, and you think about how that factors into what this thing is designed to do, it's really a very different idea than the submarines that came before.
Right. So in order to accomplish that, not only do we have sort of a launching mechanism here, but when we turn around, we're not going to be going down a hatch or anything like that. We're going to walk into a hangar.
Absolutely.
Yeah, so let's get inside
Let's
where
head
it's
in.
warmer
Yeah,
and
definitely
see if we
warmer.
can do this. So I'm going to go this way. You can actually walk this way in front of me.
There you go.
Yep, like that.
Around.
Good times. I'm connected to a cable here. So as we go here, we're actually going to walk into a hangar.
Look up real quick.
Look at this.
That thing looks like an umbrella up above your head is actually the opening into the hangar that we're stepping into.
No, so it would like close down
Close
to
to
seal the
pressurize
hangar.
while we're underwater to protect that missile.
No kidding. And y'all, give us a status check as we enter the submarine here. Let us know that everything is still good to go. So, I mean, there's room in here. It looks like they could fit multiple things in the
Absolutely.
missile hangar.
Yeah, so it's literally a hangar, not a silo. I think that's one thing that confuses a lot of our guests, too.
Right.
And they say hangar because it's almost like the missiles are parked in here.
Right.
There'd be two in this tube, kind of parked tail to nose,
Right.
facing out that way, two more in the tube next door.
So it could carry 4 total.
4 total.
I did the math myself there.
There you go. Now, they designed it like that because when these things are being put together, part of the goal is to have a space big enough that if they upgrade the missile to the Regulus II, which was developed but never deployed,
Right.
they could fit one much larger missile in here.
Okay.
And actually, that was the question I was trying to answer for you outside. Class. This
Thank
is
you.
I knew we were going somewhere with that. This is a modified Tang class attack sub. See,
Tang.
we need these submarines that do this new thing, right? We have this idea, let's put a missile on a submarine. But there's nothing purpose-built for that.
Right.
So they take subs that are either already in service or, in Growler's case, under construction, and they modify them. So Growler's going to be a Tang class attack sub, a standard attack sub of the period.
Right.
It's 30% through construction when they basically cut off the front end, attach this big bulbous nose that we're in right now
Yeah.
with new equipment in it.
Because this sticks
and
up
put it out
off the
there.
deck, right?
Exactly. I mean, you look at the front of the submarine, it's almost like the front of the submarine's got like a big mushroom on top of it.
Yeah,
right?
it's
It's a
like
very
2
strange
mushrooms
design.
with the two different hangars on
Guys
it.
who served on subs, though, is one of the ugliest looking submarines they'd ever seen because it's got this strange design.
Yeah.
But that's what makes Growler so unique, but you can see here why that's so vital. There's literally a hangar for these essentially remote control plane style missiles that are on board.
And so I imagine that would have changed the aspects of the sub, like the maneuverability and stuff like that, putting this big superstructure on the front of it to hold the cruise missiles.
From what I've read, especially when they were at periscope depth, it made it a little bit harder to handle the submarine.
Right.
They're also moving so slow that it doesn't seem to have, at least as far as I know, it doesn't seem to have a huge impact on their detectability. You know, it's not adding so much extra noise or so much extra, interference in the water that makes them more detectable.
Gotcha. All right.
They're also helped out by a kind of a curve, though. If you think about it, technology to hunt a submarine, going back to World War II, focuses on finding the submarine when it's near the surface trying to sink an enemy ship, right? You home in on it. Everybody's seen those movies. The destroyers go for the submarine, they start depth charging.
Depth charges.
Because they know the general area it's in. How do you find something that starts its day 300 feet down and could be out there anywhere? So there's a learning curve of catching up, and that's going to help this thing, even if it does make a little more noise than your average submarine.
Gotcha. Well, let's keep on
Yeah, of
walking
course.
through here and see what we got. We're going to follow our cable, right, y'all?
Of course, the platforms we're walking on, the glass walls around me, these TV screens, none of that is original.
Right.
This tube would have just been railings running through it. Now, very small number of guys are allowed up here because this stuff is all highly classified. at the time.
Yeah.
But the interesting thing is, in addition to the folks who work with the missiles, the one other group of people who are allowed up here are the people who work with the food on board, the cook and his assistants.
Really?
There's space is a premium on a submarine. We'll talk about this more downstairs.
Right.
But around the missiles in here, remember, they're not silos, they're not launching from here.
Right.
You have boxes of,
Snacks?
flour, pretzels,
Really?
apples, just kind of caked in around here. I was listening to Oral History this morning where they talked about how, though even those guys, though, because it's a nuclear missile, would have to have an officer with them to come up here to get whatever provision
So they wouldn't like
needed.
tap on the nuclear missile or anything like
Precisely.
that. Yeah.
Or mess with it for the Russians if they're a spy, what have you.
I guess one thing we didn't talk about is the wings of the Regulus would have to fold up.
That's an
If it
important
is
element
hangars.
too.
Yeah,
so
yeah.
real quick, while we're still thinking about it, to get the missile out, they come to the surface. That's another key element
Yeah,
of this.
getting to the surface.
Submarine's got to be on the surface to do this. They open up the hatch, they roll the missile out. It's got like a winch system.
Right.
They lower down the launch platform, which connects in almost like a rail line connects. Think of like a turntable.
Yep.
For a train. They pull the missile on, they unfold the wings, they fuel. Remember, liquid fuel, so they're fueling it,
They fuel it up.
aiming it, and firing it. So there's this whole process on the surface, which we'll talk about, I'm sure, later. It's not a good thing.
Yeah, that's to be contrasted with like Hunt for Red October, where it's underwater and the silos actually have the missiles oriented vertically, and they can launch from underwater.
And that's what
Red
renders this
October.
one obsolete eventually.
Yeah, no kidding. In fact, I don't think Growler served for very long.
1958 to 1964, she's in service.
Yep.
When so the first 2 years like development and stuff like that for her. By the time she's going on her first patrols in 1960, the George Washington, the very first nuclear missile submarine in the traditional sense that
Right.
can launch a missile from under the water,
Right.
that's launching its test missile that same year.
That's almost like a stopgap. Like, what can we
Precisely.
do until this other stuff is ready? We think we
Without
need this
question.
capability.
And it all gets back to the missile gap. There's a period where we believe the Soviets are out building us a missile. So the first goal
Right.
is get something out there as fast as we can. For a little while, Those submarines and George Washington's successors, they're all named after founding fathers. They called them collectively 41 for freedom.
Right.
They're in the Atlantic doing their thing. We're in a small corner of the Pacific. And over time, by the time we get to 64, there's enough of them, they retire the 5 boats that did this job.
Gotcha. No kidding. I mean, I guess it was a modified Tang class, like you said,
Exactly.
but they put all this work into launching these missiles, being able to launch the missiles, I guess. Now, I don't think they ever actually launched a missile, clearly.
Test missiles.
Test missiles.
We would know about it.
We would know if they
yeah.
launched, yeah.
None of us are glowing green right now, so I think
Exactly.
we're okay.
There's the cable, y'all. Say hi to our friend the cable.
Yeah, little known fact that our submarines were actually tethered via blue cable to shore.
That's how they got their power and stuff. So we've come down a level. Now we're actually underneath the top deck of the submarine, I guess.
Absolutely. Think of it as one main level that runs all the way through the submarine.
Right.
This is where the eating, sleeping, and working, for the most part, are taking place. There's a couple
Gotcha.
of small spaces underneath, like a workshop, but most of the rest of that's like a basement in old houses, where you store stuff. It's how you get stuff to repair it, things along those lines.
Right, right. So where are we now?
So the room we're in right now, it's a little hard to see, but if you look back past the stairs there,
Yep,
you actually have a couple of torpedo tubes back there, because we're at the forward end of the submarine. We're all the way forward. There are 4 tubes, 2 you can see, 2 that are a little lower.
Right.
You have torpedoes on board. They're not nuclear. This is a defensive weapon.
Right.
Torpedoes on the Growler, like anti-aircraft guns on the Intrepid, on the aircraft carrier.
Gotcha.
They're here in case the Russians try to stop us from launching.
So this wasn't like a hunter-killer going out and trying to find
No.
other subs or interdict shipping or anything
The way
like
I tell
that?
it to guests is World War III could have broken out. Pride of the Russian Navy could be floating on by. Khrushchev's up on the deck.
Right.
We're not going to take a shot at it.
Yeah,
because
no
our
kidding.
job is to preserve those nuclear weapons. Because
Right.
it's possible that the only thing stopping Russia from launching a first strike is the threat of us launching
We're
that
still
second
there,
strike.
right, exactly.
That's the idea behind the submarine. It's more survivable. The feeling at the time was
Right.
the Russians could overwhelm us. They get all our missile bases in the Midwest. They could wipe out Strategic Air Command, get the bombers in the airfields. But if they can't find the submarines, there's always something left that can strike back.
Right, they could strike back.
And that's our philosophy to this day with this nuclear submarine service.
No kidding. So this was the torpedo room that we were just
Yeah,
walking
and you
through.
can see there's even some beds back there. And
Yeah,
stuff.
like a
This
couple
whole area.
bunks.
There's spaces of premium. There's a bathroom over here, I think.
The torpedo room shower
Yeah, just
here.
in case.
The torpedo room water closet. Like all important things for a torpedo room, I guess.
And fun fact while you're looking at the shower, this is a theme we'll talk about again and again through our tour today. Space is a premium.
Yes.
When we first go out to sea, there's 5 showers on board. Only one of them is accessible, and it's really only going to be used for the first few weeks by the corpsman, the medic on board,
Right.
and the cook, the 2 people who have to stay sanitary. What do they do with the other 4 showers? That's where you put your stuff that you're going to eat first. Your perishables, your potatoes, your
Really?
onions. All that stuff gets hung up in the, probably hams, is hung up in the shower, and it gets eaten first.
No kidding. And then you would open up the storage space by eating the hams or whatever.
Yeah, as you
and
move
then you
through,
could take
and
a
then you
shower.
go to showers, yeah. But water is difficult to make on board.
Right,
it's
right.
cold most of the time because you're off Siberia.
Yep.
And you don't have a lot of water, so even when you get a little further in, you're talking about 1 shower every bunch of weeks.
Wow.
It is not a pleasant smelling place to be.
Well, I'm glad. I mean, I took a shower this morning, so I'm glad that we're not still on those restrictions. So we'll keep
shower
walking
for those
through.
brave sailors.
Yeah. And we'll look through. I mean, again, there's all sorts of, you know that we love our plaques and hatches and stuff like that. There's going to be so many of them as we go through there. We won't see all of them. But what are we walking into now?
We're in the navigation compartment.
Aha.
Now, when we think about navigation on board the submarine, there's a couple things going on. The one that I think people find really interesting that Growler did have is a ship's inertial navigation system.
Okay.
Now, the thing is, we had literally the first models of these. There's a former crew member named Lawrence Glacy. He's a good friend of mine. He comes out to visit the museum pretty frequently. He was a navigator on board. And I re-listened to his oral history this morning. What he said is, you know, they had literally the Mark I from, I think, Sperry, right? It didn't really work.
Right.
They replaced it like 4 times in like the 18 months he's assigned to the submarine, and none of them really worked very well. Now, inertial navigation system is basically a big gyro.
Right.
It tracks all your movements, factors in current and all that to figure out where you are. But the problem is, being an early one, these things broke down very frequently.
Yeah.
Little ball bearings and stuff would throw out.
Is that one of them?
That's our attempt to cobble something that looked like it together. The last one on board probably worked pretty well. Was probably taken off and used elsewhere.
Gotcha, gotcha.
But
So here,
Yeah, take a look at
All
that.
right, there you go. That was it.
Yeah, it's not. It's horrendously historically inaccurate. But if they can't use that, what do they do to navigate? Well,
Right.
the beginnings of the Loran system are out there, which is radio beacons and the frequency bouncing back and forth, the signal bouncing back and forth between them lets you kind of get an idea of your position.
Right.
It will at least give you your longitudinal location.
okay.
The problem, though, for them is latitude. Now, they can shoot the stars, but it's extremely difficult to do using
Sure.
a sextant and all that and trying to do
To
or
get
trying to
accurate
find the
enough.
horizon and everything,
Yep.
yeah. So what he actually used for most of the time he's on board is there's this volcano erupting in Siberia, off the Kamchatka Peninsula. The water coming, or the lava coming off of it going down a channel into the ocean constantly, this very active volcano,
Yeah.
has a distinct sound. And using that sound, they could get a pretty good idea of where they were from a latitudinal point of view.
Wow.
And those two things together gave them a pretty good idea of where they are. All the other traditional options aren't available to them. I mean, one thing he points out is, they're in a place where the ocean literally slowly, slopes up to the coast.
Right.
So they could have done soundings, figured out how deep they were, and then could have calculated where they are based on the charts.
All right.
If they do that, everybody knows where they are because they're sending out sound to do that.
Right.
So they're reduced to using these kind of odd methods. But it worked, and it gave them a pretty good idea of where they were.
So it found its position by listening to a volcano.
Yeah. What did the volcano have to tell them?
Gosh. That would be, submarines are equipped with underwater microphones because they're listening for other ships and stuff like that. And I wonder who came up with the idea, like, oh yeah, what is that noise? Oh, it's a volcano. Oh, we can use that to navigate.
Yeah, but it's, unique things like that. They're also, though, they factor in too, they're patrolling in basically the same area. So the way this would work, they'd leave Pearl Harbor. That's where the only place they were based in those years. There's 5 submarines. They're usually operating in a group of 2. They're going to leave Pearl Harbor. They're going to head out to the Pacific coast of the Soviet Union. On their way, they're going to stop in the Aleutian Islands to refuel.
Right.
When they get there, they're going to go on patrol. They're simply going back and forth, kind of off Vladivostok, Petropavlov, which is a big Soviet submarine base in that area. Right. And those are the targets they're looking for. So it's familiar waters for each of these patrols.
Gotcha. So they've been there before, I guess.
Been there before. They can't really tell us how close to the Soviet Union they were. We suspect that it was probably pretty close.
Yeah.
Most of these guys were told not to talk about it for the next 50 years.
Yeah,
Some of them started talking about it now, but there's a lot we still don't necessarily know.
God, no kidding. In this, the sub was deployed in the late 50s, I guess, so that would have put it 60, 40, that's almost 70, 65 years ago.
Yeah, it's a long, long time. These guys, they're up there,
No
but a lot of them remember it pretty well. A lot of them have come back to tell us about it.
Gotcha. That's really cool. I'm going to point this out real quick, y'all.
Yeah, go for it.
We have a handy-dandy graphic. This was not original equipment in the submarine, but you can see we're underneath the missile hangar, sort of sticking up off the top there. We're in the navigation compartment. We went down the stairs in the forward torpedo room, and we still have a lot of submarine to go through, so let's keep on keeping on.
Real quick while you're on that graphic, though,
sure.
if you look back at where it says missile checkout and guidance, notice that there's like a little step up.
Yep.
That's a great way to note how it's almost like they took a different type of submarine, cut off the front end, and put on this piece we're in right now.
Oh.
You can literally see it's like they've smashed together 2 separate types of submarines.
Gotcha. Yeah, I see that, the little bump at the top of the missile checkout and guidance. No kidding. It's just crazy, the sort of ingenuity that you use. It's like, we think we got to have this, let's go ahead and put something together.
Now for this space, I'd say take a look at it quickly from here, and we'll talk about it when we get around to the other viewpoint for it.
All right. You want to walk around to the other end and I'll... We'll get some scale right quick, y'all. Former sub officer watching. A lot has changed. Yeah, a lot has changed since you've been on the sub. No kidding, God.
Yeah, thank you for your service, sir.
There you go. All right, so this is
missile checkout and guidance. So if you think about our submarine as a mobile missile launch platform, this is where the launching of the missiles actually takes place.
Right.
This equipment would be designed to control the missile once it's fired, to get it off the ground. The way that this worked is the missiles had a range they could be controlled by for it's a little over 200 miles. Now the problem is twofold. Number one, you have to control the missile while it's going, right? You're going to send a radio signal to it. It's going to tell it to turn left, turn right, dive on its target. But you need to maintain constant control. Now, if you do that, though, the second problem that kicks in is everybody else knows where you are because the submarine's sending out a signal. It's
sending out the radio signal, right.
So in a perfect world, you pass off control to an aircraft or another vessel that's nearer, and then they guide it in. Practically speaking, who knows in the middle of World War III if that would have worked out, but it gets back to another central theme of the submarine, which is it's a shoestring. But if everything works, it's credible enough of a threat to deter
a first strike. Ah, gotcha. I'm going to come over here and join you. I thought that was a cool shot, and I'm in charge of the camera. So let's go around the corner here. Here's the step up we were talking about, right? And meet Mike over here again. So this is crazy because this is not all the drone technology we have these days. All the broadband communications and video signal, like all that stuff. This is radio control.
This is like a remote control plane, like you might have flown back in like the 80s before you were adding microchips.
Yeah, before you had all the microchips and everything. So they had the technology in the late 50s and early 60s to remote guide a flying missile that has a jet engine on the back of it and a nuclear warhead on the front from the submarine.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, not terribly accurate, but, the idea had been around. They had, aircraft they use as kind of quasi-drones. They just leftovers from World War II for training and stuff.
I've seen some, like, helicopter sort of things.
Yeah, there's a couple, like, little auto-gyro things.
Auto-gyro stuff,
But it's still a very new idea. and they hoped it worked.
Yeah, they hoped it worked. We never had to use it, but it was more about, well, we have this thing. You don't know if it's going to work or not, but it might.
Yeah,
you know,
and we
don't
think
mess
it'll
with us.
survive a nuclear war, which was the big thing.
God, no kidding.
When in that period, I mean, JFK, one of the big planks of what he runs on when he wins in 61, 62, is this idea of the missile gap. The idea that the Soviets have outbuilt us. They have so many missiles, they're going to overwhelm us in that first strike.
Right.
This is an answer to the missile gap. It's one of several, but it's a key answer to the missile gap. A missile system that you will not find before it launches.
Right. No kidding. And even that, I mean, when they had to surface and they would have to roll it out on the deck, and still, imagine once we move to the silo types of submarines, where it's even more, right?
Yeah, today they could be anywhere in the world and launch for thousands of miles.
And they're underwater, and
This one, it surfaces, right? It takes about 15 minutes to fire that first missile.
Right.
It will take about another 15 minutes to fire the next one, assuming you can pass off control of the first one. So the way that they figured it is they'd fire missile 1, 15 minutes later they'd fire missile number 2. By the time they're getting ready to fire missile number 3, and you've been on the surface for about a half hour, it's almost guaranteed they've already been sunk. Because they're going to try to fire until they're destroyed. So it's a suicide mission, but again, only in the sense that if their mission has failed and they are forced to launch, because their mission is achieved when they don't launch at all.
Right.
And that makes it, again, a shoestring effort that is viable.
That's a great way to say that. Their mission is achieved if they never have to launch, because they were a deterrent. They weren't, we're going to go out there and destroy this. If they had to launch, a lot of other stuff had already gone really wrong.
Yeah, there's nothing to go home to.
Yeah, no kidding. And still, I mean, guys got aboard the subs. They went out to the northern waters of north of Siberia, right?
Yeah.
And they would patrol out there for weeks, months at a time, and be ready to do it if it was needed to be done.
And they had mixed feelings. Some of the guys talk about how difficult that was. Some talk about how they tried not to dwell on it. Others were very, very supportive of that philosophy.
Yeah.
But, just like American society, their views ran the gamut on it.
Yep. No kidding. Well, let's keep on keeping on. And I guess we're kind of right underneath the missiles right now, aren't we?
Yeah, just about.
Yeah, so you can't see it because there's a submarine in the way, but the Missile Guidance Center is almost right underneath the launching platform.
Precisely.
I don't know if that meant anything.
I never really thought about it before, but it makes a lot of sense.
Yeah. Moving right along.
Notice what we're moving through here.
Yeah.
These hatches are a critical part of Growler's internal structure.
Very gracefully moving. Actually, you were really good at that.
Yeah, lots of experience. The guys would have grabbed the handle with its still on the top there and swung through like a monkey.
So this is where the hams would be hung until you really needed a shower.
Yes, you have all your food stuffed in the shower there.
So let's see if I can step through with Twitch chat right quick. Oops.
There you go.
Almost got it. There we go.
Now these walls provide internal structure to the submarine. You think about the pressure banking down on it. You don't want it to be crunched like a Coke can in your hand with nothing in it.
Hey, Saber.
The walls are thick. The doors are thick. They can be closed to make it watertight. As long as not, if the submarine starts to flood, as long as you trap it in one of these compartments, you still should have enough buoyancy to get back to the surface.
Gotcha.
And
so this is one of the hatches.
This is absolutely one of the hatches. Yeah, you can see the tremendous mechanism used to lock this thing in place.
No kidding. And it would seal it so you could have a hole up there, and as long as you close this off, not the entire sub would flood.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, and your first hope is going to be enough buoyancy to get back to the surface.
Right.
But then the next hope is, depending on where you are, it's probably unlikely across the Soviet Union, but maybe they can come down and get you.
It's not like you're going over the Mariner's Trench or anything like that.
No, well, you'd probably be pretty close to Hawaii, people have to know where you are. It's unlikely. But in terms of a submarine design, the next step would be we can survive for a little while without trying to get us.
Gotcha. God. So where are we going to walk through now? There's a bunch of
officers'
green
country.
roofs.
So this is where our officers would have lived on board. You're looking at this and you're probably thinking this is not an officer, but this is the guys who were in charge on the submarine. You can see it's 2 beds, not a lot of space, a couple of drawers around them. Difficult place to be, but it reflects again the lack of space on the submarine.
Yep.
If you look behind you, this is the galley for the officers. They prepare their meals. You can see there's a little pass-through right here.
Oh, hey, check that out.
Into the wardroom.
Right.
Now, you think about a wardroom on Intrepid. It's a massive room, big oak table. This is our wardroom.
That's the wardroom for the submarine.
A small amount of officers, not a lot of space in it. But one critical thing I really always found very interesting about this, what do you think the wardroom doubles as? That table's where our officers eat dinner, but what other critical function takes place on that table?
I'm going to get surgery or something.
Yes, exactly. This is essentially your clinic.
I didn't read that yesterday. Does it say it on there? I just guessed.
That's a good question.
I really did guess. I just guessed that because it looks like a big table that's got room around it that you could fit somebody on.
And it could be sterilized. Source of water's nearby. So,
right there next to it. No kidding. Because you don't have like a dedicated huge infirmary or anything like that. Like on Intrepid, up on Intrepid,
it's massive. Yeah.
They have a huge infirmary.
They have 5 doctors on board usually, a tremendous number of corpsmen, 2 surgical rooms.
No kidding.
Here we have a table.
So here's a table that also the officers eat on.
Yep.
So this is the wardroom. Actually, I want to look at one more thing over here that we saw. More officer staterooms over here, right? But that's interesting. Mm-hmm. There's like a panel with a bunch of gauges and instruments on it that show the depth of the submarine, the heading of the submarine and stuff in the wardroom.
If they're having a meeting, they still need to know what's going on. It's pretty critical.
No kidding.
Yeah, I mean, this type... It's important to remember, this is also true of the Intrepid. I think it's more true here. When we think about these things, it's not like you're in like a plane or like a speedboat where there's a very definite control space that you also observe where you're going from.
Right.
This is more like a factory that moves.
Right.
So our captain doesn't necessarily need to be in the heart of the control room when everything's going on.
Right.
But it's still critical they know what is going on with this type of stuff.
They're filled in on the situation, I guess. They're apprised of the situation. God. Some more officer stateroom. And just look at look at how every wall is a storage space. The sink is tiny. The chair is tiny. There's 3 bunks there, it looks like. So these are other officers. There's actually a safe back there as well. I wonder what the safes would be, like orders or something. I imagine
That's a great question.
It's before there were nuclear launch codes.
Yeah,
I guess, right?
That's not really an element of Growler. I don't think anyway. No, definitely. I'm thinking of the Intrepid. Intrepid had that.
Had that sort of stuff. There's like a
70s,
secure area, blah blah blah. But this is
here
before
that wouldn't apply. Yeah, there probably is. He's a fascinating guy. When he space is at a premium, so even the captain does not get that much of it.
No kidding. And chat, check it out. You're in the submarine right now. Look, that's you. I know we're sort of going through. We have an hour to go through the submarine, so I know I'm not reading. There's good questions in chat and stuff like that. When we get to the end, we'll see if we can answer some of the questions, but I know we're sort of like go right now to get through this in time.
This is the goat locker. I'm sure some of the former Navy folks who are tuning in will be familiar with that.
Right.
This is where our CPOs are going to be. CPOs, non-commissioned officers, a chief. This is equivalent in rank of folks that you would refer to as corporal or sergeant if you were in the Army, the Marine Corps, or Air Force, or what have you.
Right.
So these guys are in here. They don't have as much space as the officers did. You can see there's a bunch of them, but this is still much better than your average enlisted sailor.
Okay.
These guys are in charge. They're career Navy men. They, in some cases, may have been in the Navy a whole lot longer than the officers have.
Gotcha.
And that's kind of the nature of how a military organization is built.
And
these are the guys who really know how to run this thing.
Yeah, and so these guys that are sort of upper part of the food chain, not the top, but upper part of the food chain, they're still stacked 4 tall here.
Oh, absolutely.
There's 4 bunks on top of each other, and right above the bunks, it's just pipes and gears and all sorts, like levers and stuff like that. Mm-hmm. I mean, just, there's not any room in the submarine. God.
But remember, these guys to have gotten to that point, probably been a bunch of other submarines. This is 1958. Some of them probably had experience back in World War II. God. I'm sure they were used to it. Okay. Probably a step up from what had come before for them.
Yeah. All right. Well, let's keep on moving forwards.
The office.
The office. It's the office.
They're not actually distributing cash on board, as I understand it, but they are keeping track of these guys' hours and their pay and all that type of paperwork is done here.
Howard, if you think your cubicle is small, how'd you like to be the person sitting in that chair in the submarine underwater off the north coast of Russia in the 50s? Your job's actually pretty cushy. I'm just gonna say. There's another hatch to go through. Mm-hmm. There's a bunch of valving and stuff like that up above this. It almost looks like you could equalize pressure in between compartments
More
here.
More likely than not. And probably also a tester to see if it's filled with water.
If it's filled with water on the other side.
If that happens, you need to know what's going on the other side.
Yeah.
Is there a fire burning on the other side?
Ah, good call. All right. See, we bring Mike along for a reason, y'all. I told you. Okay. Oh, wow.
Now that's our main point. Well, I take that back. That's not our main point of drinks. This leads up into the sail.
Yeah.
Now you asked me earlier, conning tower versus sail. World War II, you call that tower on top of the submarine a conning tower because the room we're about to enter, the control room would be physically up in that space.
Right.
Submarine design post-war moves that down. It's still there. It's like a fin on top of the submarine.
Okay.
So the submarine moves with a fin, just like a fish going through the water. It stabilizes it.
Yep.
Doesn't roll like a football when you throw it. It also provides protection for the periscopes, the radar equipment, the snorkel, all the things that run up through it.
Gotcha.
And finally, at the very, very top of it, and we can see this when we get back outside perhaps, there's some windows, there's light in there.
Yeah.
If you're coming back into port, you're actually going to use that space to steer the thing
to drive
into port.
around.
Yeah, exactly.
So you can actually see. But, y'all, if you missed that, this is actually we're underneath the sail of the submarine.
The sail, yeah.
The sail of the submarine. And this ladder right here goes all the way up to the top of the thing. It looks like there's an intermediate hatch there.
Oh, yeah.
And then a hatch way up on the top. But imagine climbing up that and looking out the top of it.
Yeah.
God,
all the way up.
That's cool. All right. So here is a cool place.
This is the control room.
We're on a submarine. You know
Oh,
how I
yeah.
know? Well, A, we walked in the front of it, but B, there's a periscope on it.
Yeah. And now we got 2 periscopes, actually.
Yeah?
2 different functions. This is what you see in the movies. Now, it's retracted, so we don't see the periscope on.
Right.
When we think of these, it's not like an old TV antenna that telescopes. I think people picture it that way.
Right.
It's one long, solid metal tube.
And you just raise it up, and that's
You
how
raise
far it
up,
goes.
And if you need to bring it in, you're going to have to send it down into the submarine to protect it. Like a
Oh,
sword
so-
goes back into a sheath carried by a knight.
Oh, wow, so
Similar
there's like
idea.
another level down there.
Yeah, exactly. This is one of the areas where there is some space underneath. It goes
Okay.
way down to the keel.
I'm not going to drop the camera in there.
We
You
don't.
know the G30.
I'll look down
I can't
this
get
one.
it back for you if you do.
Yeah.
It's the growlers now.
It's the growlers. We've sacrificed the camera to the growlers.
So you use this to look around,
Right.
right? But let's say you see that Russian ship. You want to get it before it gets you. You want to fire a torpedo at
Right.
it. That's where the other periscope comes in. Now, if we look closely up there, notice you don't have 2 functional eyepieces. You have 1. And the value of that is you're closing one eye while you're aiming, right?
Right.
You look through there, crosshair inside, you match it up with your Russian ship of choice. Dials and gizmos on it give you a bearing. You're going to use that information, plug it into that panel over there with the 2 orange circles on it. It's the
Okay.
torpedo data computer. That's hooked up to the torpedoes, and basically the 2 of them are going to communicate. You're going to do some adjustments, but eventually it's going to get you a firing solution on your target. Basically, it's going to help the torpedo arc its speed, its range, its course to be able to get to where the Russian ship is going to be when the Russian ship gets there.
Gotcha.
And that's our smart bomb technology of the period. No computer,
From
there's no
the
brain in the
50s.
torpedo, there's no microchips. But with that vacuum tube technology, what I like to tell the guests is, you know in Robin Hood, he pulls back the bow and arrow and he bends the feather a little bit to get the arrow to curve?
Yeah.
This is our feather bending
This
of the
is feather
1950
bending.
of 1960.
No kidding. And so to bring this back again, there's 2 different periscopes. It's not like the copy of the periscope. One of the periscopes is more of a panoramic thing for looking
Exactly.
around, and the other one is a targeting periscope. It's like a fisheye lens versus a zoom lens.
Precisely. Think about a sniper, right? One guy's got
Yeah.
binoculars to figure out where the thing is. The other guy's got the actual scope.
The actual
Similar
scope.
logic.
Gotcha. I guess this is the targeting one. So this would be the fisheye lens on a little action camera, and this would be the G30 we use to zoom in on stuff.
Precisely.
There you go. No kidding. So this is more interesting things here.
Steering.
Steering.
Now you call it a helm, just like on any watercraft,
Yep.
and the first and biggest one is the rudder.
Right.
The helm, rather, that's controlling the rudder for left and right.
Okay.
Pretty straightforward. But our submarine operates in a 360-degree environment, goes up and down as well as left and right.
Right.
And that's where the plane controls come in.
Okay.
Bow and stern planes, there's sets of flippers kind of perpendicular to the rudder, the forward and the aft end of the submarine.
Right.
And together, they're working together to move the submarine through the water.
So
articulating
3
its
people
movement.
driving?
So my understanding of this is very complicated, but my understanding of it is it's 3 people driving typically. One of them can control the other functions, but typically you want the 3 people doing each thing separately.
Working together
Yeah.
to, because one person's doing bow planes, one person's doing stir planes, and one person's doing. You said this was the helm, right?
This is the helm,
It's
yes.
got the rudder on it. I figured that out myself.
The ratio of how frequently they're doing all one job, I've heard different things from different folks who served on other submarines, other time periods. Basically, today, it's a joystick that controls the whole thing.
Right.
But that's because there's a computer brain between that can interpret these 3 things in sequence.
This is probably hydraulics or something like that.
That's the part that fascinates me the most. It's hydraulics. It's like the jaws of life a fireman uses.
Right.
Hydraulics, pressurized liquid. But let's say you lost hydraulic pressure. You can't steer. But you can using these things back here.
Wait, what?
This is a hydraulic system. You pop these open, and you get guys on this pumping away. It would build back up the pressure you need in the hydraulic fluid to be able to regain control of steering. Now, you're going to be constantly doing this. It's going to be backbreaking, but that would give you what you would need to bring back basic control over the
So
steering.
these are like manual hydraulic pumps, I
Yeah,
guess.
they're like gyros almost, like, you're...
Yeah. God, no kidding.
It's like a pump car on a railroad.
This is the brake down here, right? Is that?
Yeah,
if you need to
absolutely.
stop the submarine, you slam on the brakes. My mom does that while I'm driving and she's in the passenger seat. She slams on the floorboard. I'm like, Mom, there's no brakes over there. That's not actually the submarine brakes.
No. I have no idea what that is, to be honest, but it's a good guess. It certainly looks like the brakes.
Why would you need a pedal on a submarine? It probably actuated something or turned something on.
There's so many controls for this thing.
Yeah. I mean, again, like everywhere, because space is at a premium, everywhere has a gauge or a dial. There's the depth
Absolutely.
to keel. Here's a bunch of hull openings, and you can see, like, did everything go green, or is something red if it's open or whatever.
This is a great example of that sort of thing.
Yeah.
This one, though, remember, they're out there for a long time.
Right?
They called this the Christmas tree.
The Christmas tree.
You know, a reminder of home, I guess, but it was more just that the colors that were sort of reminded of them of, right? You got the green and the red up there.
Yep.
But really, it's just telling you, like you said, hull indicators.
Is everything
what is
open or
open,
closed?
what is closed. You want to make sure you have everything nice and green before you dive, or you're going to trouble.
You're going to have some water in there. You're not supposed to have water. And here's even hull opening indicator for missile hangars.
Yeah.
So check this out. I mean, I wonder if this is equipment from the original Tang class stuff. They added missile hangars, so there's a separate box that indicates just the missile hangars.
That's a very good point. I don't
made
know.
that up. I don't know. know, yeah.
But in that era, given
Yeah.
the way this stuff was designed, it's very, very possible because everything's going to require its own wire. It's not like a
Yeah.
modern computer system where you can reprogram.
Right, you run it
that
over the
digital
cable and-
screen to
Yep.
show you what you need.
Yep. I wonder if things like that are true because it would make sense that they added hangars, they added lights for the
Look
hangars.
up here, look at all the cable. And we talked about this when we walked through
Oh
the
my
Intrepid
gosh.
too. Everything requires its own cable, everything requires its own signal. So yeah, it would make sense that you're going to have to add additional equipment for something like that.
Look, I mean, the cable, the wiring for the entire submarine is ridiculous. I mean, it's not Intrepid level because the Intrepid had hundreds of miles of cable on
but
it.
for this little thing,
For
it's
the
a
little
lot.
thing, yeah.
And the guy who's on board is going to need to know basically what every one of those wires does and how to repair everything.
All right, well, let's keep on going. Oh, submariners say the pedals are trim tabs.
Oh, thank you very much.
Now we know.
Trim tabs. Let me make sure I look that up.
Trim tabs. So, hey, it allowed them to adjust the rudder's default position. We have, all right, how many people, I know a lot of people were super excited, so some ex-service members who served on submarines, and I know a couple of them are watching right now. How many people in chat are actually served on a submarine? I'm interested to hear. Just type it in chat, and I'll let Mike know after a couple minutes here.
And gentlemen, you know, Monday day is Veterans Day. We very much appreciate your service to this country, particularly in something like this and what that must have been like.
Absolutely. All right. Thank you, Escape Pods. We appreciate the help there. All right.
So you're going to fire your torpedo over here. This will be the final step of that whole process. You indicate which tubes you're going to fire, aft tubes and forward tubes. There's a whole lot of other controls that are beyond me, but this is the actual firing mechanism right there. The recessed box there. This is my understanding of how it works.
Run offset. So it's, yeah, it does say fire. It says standby and fire right there. I don't know if y'all can quite see that, but so that's interesting. You fire the torpedoes from here. You don't tell the guy up there to like hit a button and let the torpedo go. Yeah. It's the controls right here. Wow. It's just, this is actually interesting. This is like the most spacious room in the sub. And you'd be standing up, I mean, imagine somebody standing up on there looking around and...
and everything going on around you, guys running back and forth trying to get to their battle stations, depending what's going on.
I don't know if y'all can see this, but you can see where the periscopes go through the upper hull there, and that's got to be 4 or 5 inches thick up there.
Oh, yeah.
That's crazy how thick this is going to, because it is underwater. It's got to hold pressure.
We know that they've done test dives and went down a little over 700 feet. I'm not sure exactly how far, because remember, she's a modified boat, so like what the rated crush depth would have been is kind of not relevant, I guess you could say. But typically on patrol, they're at about 300 feet. It gets back to what I said earlier. Nothing's built to detect something that's 300 feet down yet, right? Because that's not how this process works. It's not anywhere out there in the ocean. So that means that they get to 300 feet, nobody's going to find them. They're beneath the weather, which is really why they're going down that deep. There's not a lot of current type stuff to worry about. They're just doing their thing, cruising along at like 3 knots, like walking speed, waiting for orders to end the thermonuclear
Just loitering,
war.
just hanging out.
Yeah.
Just, no kidding.
Just in case.
God. At 300 feet, we have that much cable.
There we go.
It's right here. You can see it. Saber's unspooling it safely.
Our submarine tether is at the perfect length.
You go, exactly. We could actually have the live view solo on the surface in a little dinghy, and we could live stream from 300 feet under the water. I don't know if that's true or not, but I'll test it. Not today. Oh, so there's another. You said there was like a workshop.
Yeah,
or something
so
down there.
there's a smaller area down there that's beneath us that's kind of more of like a rooms, and then as you get further out, that's where you have like the freezer compartments, and storage, and access to equipment for repair.
Almost looks like a coffee maker, but I'm pretty sure it's not.
No,
the coffee makers are the
We're
galley.
almost there for that.
Yeah.
The sonar room, and we mentioned this earlier, we alluded to it, you're only ever using passive sonar.
Right.
These guys in that era are extremely well trained. They're listening. They know based on the way the propeller spins, what they're hearing in the water, whether it's a Soviet military vessel, whether it's a civilian fishing vessel.
Right.
Some of them are so well trained they can tell which different type of Soviet vessel it is. Hunt for Red October does a great job of illustrating that kind of capability. But you're never using active sonar. You're never sitting at that ping like you see in movies.
Because that's telling people
exactly
like,
where you are.
Not even one ping only.
Yeah. There you go.
Don't look at me like that.
What?
He looked at me like I was crazy.
Oh, no, I was just thinking of one ping only. Sean Connery just...
Because if you send out a ping, you're advertising your location, right? So you're just sitting there passively listening to stuff. Wow.
Radio room, another same idea. They're never really sending out communications.
Right.
But they are receiving low frequency radio broadcasts. This is where they get their orders, how they know if they had to launch. The other interesting thing is they're always worried about morale for these guys, because these guys would be away from home for long periods of time. Average patrol is about 90 days, so about 3 months. So usually, like once a month, they'd organize the thing where the families could send messages they wouldn't receive a response to, and it would be like a short, like very much like a Western Union telegram style, like thinking of you, happy birthday. There was one guy on board whose wife went into labor. It was like a severe, like a dangerous pregnancy. and he got word that she gave birth just before they went off on their mission.
Wow.
Relief.
God.
But he didn't find out the gender of the baby until either a month later or when they got home. Yeah. So just you're that far removed, and they couldn't really tell their families much about what they were doing. There's a letter that one of the former captains had sent out to the families, telling them about like here's where like the different things you need on the base are. Here's my wife's contact information, because when you're home, the senior officers' wives would be expected to kind of take a leadership role among the families.
Right.
But one element of it was like, yeah, we're going on a training cruise. Meanwhile, they're off the Soviet Union ready to launch a missile.
God.
It's classified.
It is classified, yeah.
Real funny thing while we're in here, too. I believe it was this room. The first time they take the submarine, one of the very first times they took the submarine out to sea to do a dive test, they went down and they heard this noise, and they looked in this room and they saw water spitting out of the upper area there and flooding the room.
Not ideal.
They start
in the
bailing it
radio
out.
room.
They get to the surface. They realize that a little passage, like a little conduit, almost like where you put a screw through, meant for a wire to run through, hadn't been sealed in the shipyard. Now, this is expensive getting this thing out there for this test. They have to go back to repair. They don't want to do that. So a couple enterprising guys have a great idea. They notice the size of the hole. They grab 2 nickels. One of them is like a little buffalo nickel and a rubber gasket. Yeah. And I guess probably some like rubber cement or something. And they're able to create enough of a seal with those things over this hole that they're able to finish the tests.
With 2 nickels.
Now, in the collection, we have a plaque made in commemoration of the thing. It's got the gasket and the 2 nickels, and it says on it, the cheapest repair in shipyard history.
No kidding. God, I love stories like that. I appreciate you coming and sharing all that sort of stuff. Again, I always say it, but if you go on a guided tour or if you go on a museum or something like that, it's one thing to walk through it on your own and sort of see stuff. If you can sign up for a guided tour with an educator or something like that, like you should try to do that at museums because it's always worth the time.
And we feed off of you guys. This is how we can tell what people are interested in and what to ask when we meet the folks who are really here.
Yep. So now we're in the snack bay.
Yeah, you got our galley here. Submarine service is kind of strange, right? These guys are on a submarine, so their food is limited.
Right.
But the way that it's structured, for Growler's case, they had like basically double the budget that a typical ship would to buy food, because they're getting it for a much longer period of time than they're on board.
Right.
So they have really good food. When they initially leave port, they are occasionally eating things like, lobster, steak. There's a story about frogs' legs being cooked on board. This one cooked hot dog was really famous for the things he could make. Now, eventually this stuff goes away.
Sure.
But then you're going to have the very best frozen, dried, and canned food money can buy.
That you can get, right?
What do they have? They're having a lot of sweets on board. They would make cakes in here for the guys. They had an ice cream maker on board, which normally is reserved for very large ships. The ice cream maker actually is back here on the wall.
Oh, yeah, it is right there. That looks like an ice cream maker. There are instructions to make ice cream. Ice cream maker unit, 1 gallon capacity.
A ritual for hot dog was making sticky buns at night, at a certain time of night. So these are the ways that they're going to help morale out on board. Now, to us, a less savory aspect of what they were doing on board for morale, they carried thousands upon thousands of cartons of cigarettes with them on every voyage, which to us sounds insane. But in the 1950s, it's one thing to ask these guys to go far away from home for all that time, but not practical to ask them not to smoke.
Not to smoke.
So they would be smoking cigarettes while they were on board the submarine.
On board the submarine.
On board the submarine. Probably improve the smell.
God. And here we are with the crew's mess. Apparently the game room as well.
Yeah. Right? Space is a premium again. So you're going to be playing your games here. You're going to be watching your movie here. You can set up our reel-to-reel tape player.
Yep.
Or you get your reel-to-reel tape player for the music there, but you can set up your film projector.
Oh, look at this.
It's
the ship's entertainment system, it says. The ship's entertainment system. Channel 1, Channel 2. Look, it's got bass and treble even down there.
One of our oral histories, the former crew member talks about how they rarely if ever use that thing, though.
Right.
What the Navy didn't really think about is that it's meant to broadcast to the whole submarine. You're off Russia hiding.
Yeah.
That's not a good idea.
You don't want to be broadcasting.
Yeah, they hear Elvis, down there. They're Frank Sinatra crooning. It's going to be a clue
Probably
as to who's
not
out
a whale.
there. Exactly. Of course, you've got coffee.
The coffee, yes.
Navy runs on coffee, the lifeblood of the military.
Can you answer this one? I mean, it says twin coffee urns, but there's 3... I mean, there's 2 things on top.
Maybe one of them was classified.
One of them was classified. Nice.
So you can imagine these guys hanging out in here. Well, the other thing I said about space before, that it's not just the showers. This is a great place to think about that. Look down below your feet. We're walking on this mat because the museum put it in, but you can see the linoleum tile.
Right, over here.
When they first left port, they had so much food on board that there would be a row of cans covering that entire floor with cardboard on top of it. They'd be walking on it.
On
so
their
as little
food.
head spaces we have now, it would be actually a little bit tighter.
Wow.
And they'd be slowly eating their way back down to the floor.
And I guess they would crush the cans or something like that.
Yeah, they might have expelled them. You know, they have a means of getting rid of garbage that'll cause it to just sink.
Yeah.
But yeah, they'd have to eat their way through all that because they got to find a place to put it.
Again, space is at a premium. It's sort
This
of
is
a
our
theme.
main point of entry and exit.
wow.
This pops up on the deck right behind the sail.
Okay, so now we've gone behind the sail, and this is it looks like a double hatch. Is that glass something the museum installed?
Yeah,
or?
the museum put glass up there so you can see out of it, but
so
nobody's tempted to try to get out a little early.
Yeah.
It's a little claustrophobic down here, so we want to be careful nobody's trying to get out.
Yeah, no kidding.
Well, at least before they're supposed to get out.
There's a very tour path that you're supposed to go on to get out.
Exactly.
And there's not a lot of room in here.
No.
God, look at this, y'all.
This is enlisted berthing. This is
Right.
where the enlisted guys are going to live. Now, a couple things about this. It looks horrendous.
Right?
It's worse than it looks.
It's worse than it looks.
Submarines are famous for something called hot bunking.
Right.
What that means is if you sleep here, when you get up to go to work, somebody else might also be assigned to this bunk who then climbs in and sleeps here. Thus, the bunk is already warm.
It's warm for you.
Now, this submarine had enough bunks for like 2/3 of the crew to have their own, which some people have told me, at least in the early part of the submarine service, made it a little more luxurious of a boat to be on.
Right.
Go back to World War II, virtually all the enlisted guys are hot bunking on board.
This is the lap of luxury almost.
Precisely. When you're in the submarine service, you have to do something called qual, which basically means when you're on board the submarine, you need to become a qualified submariner. So you get here as like a, almost like a, I guess you think like almost like an intern. I know that sounds bizarre, but you come on board, you know your basics, you've gotten out of submarine school, but you're going to test on every aspect of the submarine, pass all that, and that's when you become really a full-fledged member of the crew.
Gotcha.
So those guys are the guys who are definitely hot bunking. Guys who aren't allowed to watch the movie. You know, you want to watch the movie, you're not qualified. Well, you could be spending that time studying, so they will literally boot you through that area.
Jeez.
You know, really rib on you, tell you, get out of here. You know, while you're trying to watch the movie, you should be off there studying. So life for those guys can be rough.
Yeah,
but
almost
it's
like
a badge of
initiates
honor.
or something.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Submarine service is considered to be an elite service. It's always been all volunteer. We never ordered anybody onto a submarine because you really can't. You need people who want to be here.
Yeah.
And there have always been enough men and now women who want to be here, who want to serve their country that way.
And I mean, each one of these is just... Imagine this being your space, and you're lucky if you don't have to share it with somebody else.
Absolutely.
But you got like a little spot to put a book or something, a little light.
You look on the opposite side. I believe each man does get their own locker, but imagine that you're the guy sleeping here and one of the other two wants something out of his locker.
I mean, because if I was laying in here, I'd be up to this level. You can't get to the locker if there's somebody laying in here. God. Is there another bunk on top of
There's
this?
another bunk on top, and if you look over here, there's a whole other row.
I can't see what y'all are seeing right now. Who knows what's up there,
Dust,
right?
probably.
Oh, there is another row over
There's
there.
a whole other row.
God.
I always thought this was the worst one. I've never heard any specifics about who gets to use this bunk,
Yeah.
but that just seems very poorly placed.
I mean, I laugh about it, but still, somebody had to sleep in there while they were at sea for
back
months.
And forth through.
Yeah. I wonder what the noise level was like on the submarine. Normally, you'd want it to be pretty quiet, right?
Yeah, but I'm sure there's still enough going on that it gets back to that central idea that like there are going to be times when they know there's an enemy ship in the area.
Yep.
Passive sonar, they're listening, where it gets really quiet. Then there'll be other times where it's more like you see in the movies.
Through the hatch.
More bathrooms.
Oh, hey, look at that. There's 2 sinks in there.
Yeah.
There's a shower down there, too. Wow. God, the antidote is in this closet right here. What? Do you know anything
That's an
about that?
interesting question. I don't. I mean,
Yeah.
I've heard conjecture here. I've heard that they kept iodine in there,
Right.
just in case because of the nuclear stuff on board, but I don't have any definitive evidence of that. But
Yeah.
we're talking about 1958. That technology has advanced enough since World War II that they would have been conscious of the fact that iodine would need to be administered almost immediately
Right.
to try to draw out the radiation.
God. So, yeah, my 40s dressers, we're in a submarine right now. Yes, we are actually in a submarine.
Absolutely.
Look, Saber is unspooling 400 feet of cable while we go.
Okay.
Mike's telling us about everything, and I'm pointing the camera around while trying not to hit my head on
And
stuff.
not just any submarine. One of the world's first 5 ever built to carry nuclear weapons, by far the oldest surviving. There are only 2 places in the world where you can go on board and visit a submarine that carried nuclear weapons.
Yeah.
Other ones in France. So the only one in Western Hemisphere, I guess, would be our big
Wow,
one.
here in New York City. All right, so moving right along, it looks like we're getting into
Distillers,
we talked about that.
you need water on board, right? It's
Yep.
not just about drinking and health and stuff. You're going to need it for the batteries that
Right.
are on board and a variety of other tasks.
Cooling things,
Yeah,
probably.
it takes up a tremendous amount of energy, and it speaks to an important point. When we talk about a nuclear submarine, Growler's not a nuclear submarine, which I know probably sounds weird because we just said it's got nuclear weapons on it. A nuclear submarine, that word nuclear in that refers to the propulsion system,
Right.
not to the weapons carried. Growler is a conventionally powered submarine. It has a diesel-electric engine, modern for the period that it was in service,
Sure.
and it's using that diesel fuel to generate energy that's going into batteries that it runs off of most of the time,
Yep.
or in certain brief circumstances, to run motors that are spinning propellers.
Spinning propellers, right.
You know,
But in order to run the diesels, you had to have oxygen for them.
Precisely.
So you'd have to be up at a level where you could put a...
And that's an important advancement they make late in World War II that Growler benefits from, is a snorkel.
Okay.
You're going to get to just below periscope depth. You drive up this snorkel. It kind of looks like Darth Vader's head, I think, the way that it's a weird thing. But it's got like a piece on it that brings in oxygen, another piece that vents.
Yep.
And the idea is you can vent the air inside, vent the exhaust from the engines while you're running them. Also pull in air to refill the submarine with for oxygen for the guys to breathe on board.
Gotcha.
Now, Growler's routine is that you do that for a couple hours every night, like 4 hours, and that brings you up to full energy and full oxygen.
Right.
You can last for 2 days on the oxygen you have inside the submarine, but they do it every night because you don't really want to go below half
Sure,
power.
you'd rather keep it topped up, I guess.
And that's the time to do it when nobody's around. Nobody's going to notice you.
Dark. It's harder to see Darth Vader's
Exactly.
head flying in the middle of the Siberian Sea or whatever it's called up there.
And it gets back to our point from before. They don't know where you are. You're
Right.
anywhere out there.
That's
They
the point.
know. Yeah, so it's very unlikely they're going to find you when you're doing that.
Yeah.
But the distillers, part of the reason that there's so few baths on board, showers, is because they can only make so much water because there's limited fuel to run the distillers.
So they were
This is an energy-intense
desalinating
process.
it?
Yeah, they're bringing
like
in
salt
the salt
water
water,
and they were-
pulling out the salt. Yeah, I'm sorry, Brett. This desalinization, they're bringing
Yeah.
in the water, they're pulling out the salt.
Yeah, I guess it does say, boiling seawater to remove
Yeah.
the salt. So it took energy to do that, and you can't waste the water because
Precisely.
you're limited on energy. You're under the...
Energy is today, on a modern nuclear submarine, those things are built to survive with basically a little cleaning up and a little bit of minor maintenance for like 25 years.
Yep.
What limits how long they can be out is the food and medicine supply.
Gotcha.
Because they have unlimited fuel.
All right, and we are down to about 7 minutes here. So we've got these Merrimack-looking things.
These are the generators. So the motors are attached to them. The motors are attached to them that are running, that are generating the generators are creating the energy that's going into the batteries.
Gotcha.
There are 3 of them. They're horrendously inefficient, intentionally so.
Right.
They have extremely small number of reciprocating parts to make them as quiet as possible. The side effect of that is most of the guys we've talked to never remember a time all 3 were running. There were plenty of times where only one of them was running, and just barely. So they were in serious, serious trouble if that one broke down. But it's the price of something like this being functional.
Gotcha. And these big things in the middle are...
That I am not positive
Wow. I have no clue what those even are. Oh, there's a diesel generator down there.
This is the centrifugal oil purifier.
An oil purifier. Well, now we know, chat. This is what an oil purifier looks like. It's, there you go. The Sharples Corp was... your go-to for purifying your oil centrifugally. Anyways.
We have a bunch of former crew members who come back, and we have guys who are former submariners who volunteer here, and they're usually our experts on that, a lot of the tech stuff. Big shout out to Bill, who comes every week and does as much of the work as he can on this thing. Nice. He's really my source when I have questions about this stuff.
Yeah, gotcha. So we're walking through, this is like the control booth for the engine right now.
Precisely. You're controlling, again, it gets back to our rolling factory metaphor we talked about earlier. You're not controlling the speed from up there. You're going to want to know what kind of speed you want, but they're going to dial all that in here.
Right.
That's where the actual controls take place.
X number of RPMs or whatever per engine, da-da-da-da-da. So
making sure that everything's working in tandem together.
Yeah, you got your volts and your temperatures and everything, and all sorts of gauges and levers and knobs. We're going to keep on going forward through another hatch here. And there we go. Oh, hey.
I have no idea why that bath is pink.
There's the toilet, and the back is painted pink.
There probably is an historical reason for it. I do not know.
So here is the maneuvering room.
Again, another component of the the wider engine systems and how they work. Here, it's talking more about the speed. So the maximum speed is 12 knots submerged and 14 knots on the surface.
Right.
Which sounds slow and is, but that's because you don't really need to go anywhere quickly.
Yep.
It's the whole logic of how our submarine is designed.
The faster you go, the more easily you could be detected. I guess you probably make more noise, so you're just sort of cruising around.
Especially with that big bulbous front.
Yep. God, but this is the same sort of thing where it's like...
here's the actual speed controls.
Yep, they ring back, this is what they want, and then they make it happen.
Yeah, like you see in the movies, like, Titanic or something, third forward, 2/3 forward stand, full flanking speed is as fast as you could go.
Yep. Oh, hey, check this, another Red October thing, there's a cavitation indicator.
Yeah. Always an important question, cavitation. There's a curve, and you're basically trying to make sure that you're going slow enough that you're not creating those bubbles.
Yep.
And that additional noise.
Yep. All right. We're continuing on. Oh, yeah, regular... We don't have to crunch into a little ball to get through the hatch. And we have found ourselves in the aft torpedo room. I've worked that out myself.
Here you can see much more clearly the way that the torpedoes were set up. You had like 14 torpedoes on board, again, for defensive purposes.
Right.
You can see one here rigged up, ready to go to be put in that tube if they needed to launch a torpedo.
Where
There's
they
a
store
lathe
'em?
right where we are now. So the stairs are in the way, but my understanding of how they modified the sub is that the staircase opening originally would have been where the pass-through would have been for the torpedoes to be lowered through. So we're going to hatch there.
So there's like
something similar up forward.
Gotcha. And then they'd have them back here. There's 2 torpedo tubes in the. We're in the aft right now.
Yeah,
Check it out.
There's 2 back here. There would have been 4 forward.
Yeah. So this is where we started up here. There's the Regulus, the missile hangar. There's the forward torpedo room. We came down the stairs, went through navigation, missile guidance checkout, officers' quarters, control room, cruise mess, cruise quarters, engine room, and we're now in the aft torpedo room, like it says right there. It says you are here.
It's been quite the journey.
We are. It's true. So we have 3 minutes left. It's almost exactly on time here.
Perfect.
Talked about the torpedoes and stuff. Any questions, y'all? We have a couple minutes, maybe to catch a couple questions while we were in there. Anything we missed? Any other cool
No, the only thing I'll
stories?
say is, the submarine's retired in 1964. It spends years rusting away.
Right.
They get ready in the late 80s to sink it as a missile target. They take all the equipment off. They actually have pictures of her sister Greyback painted bright orange when it was sunk for its missile test. But before the missile test happened for Growler,
Right.
The museum appealed to Congress. Congress passed a resolution turning over control of the Submarine Act to turning over the submarine's control to the museum.
To the museum,
We
to the
brought it
Intrepid.
here and it was set up. They even had to get the Russians to sign off on it because the treaties we had at the time that regulated disposal of nuclear submarines, how many we could each have,
Right.
the stuff that Reagan negotiated, this would have counted toward the total. So
Really?
they had to make an exception. The Russians agreed to allow the submarine to be here.
No kidding. All right, that was a great tour. Well, thank you, Chet. I'm going to read through real quick. Was there laundry on board? We didn't see a washing
No.
machine.
So they would wear basically their same pair of clothes for
Right.
as long as they could. I remember reading that these guys, when they would bring on board, they tried to bring basically as many socks and underwear and stuff as they could.
Right.
Cram them everywhere you can imagine. But their main clothes, they're going to wear them the whole time, and a lot of guys, when they got back to the surface, they just throw them away.
Toss them. I
Yeah.
imagine. Yeah, that's actually an interesting question. Walking through this, I didn't see a laundry. That was awesome. Get to see the sub virtual field trip in action. Yep, excellent tour. Mike's always fantastic. I'm just reading chat. I'm just reading chat.
Thank
The toilet is pink because pink is a calming color and helps you relax.
It's certainly possible.
Really?
That's the green. That's why we have the green. Serene green was designed to be a calming color.
Is that really?
Yeah, my understanding of the psychology behind it is it's like a nature state kind of thing, right? We seek trees and in the woods, so
Yeah. It's almost like branches and all the pipes and everything. I could buy that. I would buy that.
institutional green, sometimes it's referred to as.
Yeah. How loud was it in the engine room? Well, remember on the submarine they were trying to be as quiet as
Absolutely.
possible.
When the engines are running, I'm sure it was a little louder, but still quiet compared to what you would expect from an engine like that. Imagine an engine where everything's like muffled inside. So it's not very efficient, but it gets the energy done without too much noise.
I'm still scrolling through questions here, and it's like, you drink it if you feel you're sympathetic to communism. Really? Really? That's not what the antidote was for. Still everybody's
I've
guessing
met a
what
couple
the
Fort Worth
antidote
members who
was.
would probably applaud that response. That's the era.
Oh, let's see here. It's not harsh to look at. Talking about that, I'm seeing if I missed any other questions. You take the uniform out of the sub, but you'll never get the sub out of the uniform. So you
That's
just toss it.
phenomenal. I may use that with our guests.
That's actually, there you go, Krylani. Well, good contribution there. The sub, one thing that we can't bring to you is there is a smell in the sub.
Oh, absolutely.
It's like gear oil and diesel. When you go through the engine room, it smells more like diesel. It's been 65 years and
First
still
former
there.
crew member I ever met was a Growler guy, not an Intrepid guy. I had been here a couple of weeks, and I was, talking to 2 people at the top, like our new staff often do.
Right.
And he walked in, he took a deep breath, he had all his grandkids around him, and he's like, I'm home.
Oh.
The smell. And that always stuck with me, because that's really what it was like for a lot of these guys, being able to show other generations that their stuff is still around, and this smell.
Yep.
Smell is a key sensory
Yeah,
thing.
like a memory, triggers
You
memories.
think back to your earliest birthday, you remember the smell of the frosting or the candles burning is always a prominent thing.
Yeah.
Smell your grandma's cooking,
Now, Saber and I, right? Saber's still over here. Saber and I got to the hotel yesterday after doing the technical walkthrough, and we went, still smells like the Growler.
There you go.
Because all of our clothes that we wore yesterday smelled like the Growler. Like, you spend an hour in here, and it definitely makes an impression on your clothing, at least. Talking about how thick the hull is, probably 5 inches. I'm not sure how hull, though.
I can't tell you top of my head, but if we look real quick at the wall here,
Oh, yeah, here,
one
check
thing that
this
is real
out.
interesting, that texture there is cork. There's
Cork.
cork all over the interior to absorb vibration and sound.
Really?
Yeah. Well, look, there we go.
Up there, yeah.
Yeah.
So it's like layers of cork sheathing. or
Precisely. And then a
whatever.
very thick pressure hull. How
Yeah,
thick
yeah.
exactly, I don't know.
Pretty thick. Thick enough to go down 300 feet
Yeah.
and be underwater. So I think what we're going to do here, y'all, I think it's about time for us to shut it down. It's 6:31, so we're 1 minute over. Mike, as always, thank you so much.
My pleasure.
We are so spoiled because when we come to the museum, Mike takes time out of his day, his evening actually. You wouldn't be working right now because it's 6:30, but it's always a fantastic
I got a lot of
time.
friends in the chat, you know.
Yeah.
Come down for you guys, always.
Absolutely. So y'all know what to do, chat. I want everybody in chat to say thanks to Mike for spending time here. Also, thanks to the Intrepid for trusting us to drag a cable through the submarine. I mean, Saber still got cable there. Yeah. I don't think we'll need to walk up to the top there or anything, but a massive thanks to the Intrepid Sea and Space Museum. You know I say it all the time. You love the virtual field trips. You get to experience stuff like this. If you ever make it to New York and your family's like going to go see a show or something, be like, we got to go to the Intrepid too. I'm not kidding. Like, there's a lot of cool stuff to see here at the museum. So, as always, we appreciate y'all hanging out. And here's everybody spooling through the chat with hearts. And thank you for spending time with us. And just everything as always.
And just to add one real quick thing to that, guys. Again, Veterans Day is coming up this coming week. Please thank veterans. But also, if you're a veteran, you want to come down and visit us, we have free admission for you. So please come check out the museum. A little bit we can do.
Absolutely, yeah. So y'all, again, thank you for sharing the field trip with us here. We're going to go ahead and shut it down. We're not done, though. I'm not actually going to turn off the stream. We're going to go over the donor page because that's one of the ways that we're able to get out here. Your support allowing us to make these virtual field trips happen. But the donor page is going to stay there for probably 15 or 20 minutes. When we come back, we'll be up in the Space Shuttle Pavilion on the tail end of the Intrepid here because we're going to be talking with some people from the NASA spin-offs place and watch the presentation they're doing later. So don't go anywhere. I appreciate the support. You'll see that donor screen for probably about 20 minutes. When we come back, we'll still be live for the Intrepid Museum here in New York City. For now, we'll go ahead and get out of here.
Sounds good.
Later, nerds. And do the awkward countdown thing because there's a delay and we're doing all the production here. And if we cut the camera immediately...